going well for you, that you are being safe and taking all reasonable measures in order to stay safe and enjoy life with your family and loved ones. Wondering if you have decided to have the vaccine. Um, I am generally not a big proponent of vaccines. I'm very cautious about it. Let me say it that way. But I did decide to get the vaccine. I've had the first dose. Not going to share with you which one because I'm not, advertising. The best one is the one that's available to you. But I decided to go ahead and do it because I want to travel again, and I'm afraid that there's some countries that won't permit you in, or this country may not permit you to come back in if you haven't had it. So I decided to go ahead. Had the first dose. Um, my arm was sore for, I don't know, half a day or so, but really no other, complications. I'm taking the second dose this coming week, and I'll let you know how that goes. But by all means, do your own research. And that means going a bit beyond Google, and beyond, what your friends and family are saying. But look at the experts. Look at the scientists and the doctors who are working in this area and have knowledge of what they're talking about. Have real knowledge. And these days that's kind of hard because everybody's an instant expert. But you know, be that as it may. So, come on in. Come on in. I'm pouring coffee today because I got a kind of strong word for you today, and you may need something a little bit stronger than tea today. So I've got some Kona coffee from the beans from Hawaii, and they're pretty good. Um, I like it. I'll probably have another cup when we finish. But come on in. I'm pouring, and I have fluffed up the pillows. I'm very anxious to chat with you today. And what I want to talk to you for just a little bit is about shame. I've been dealing with that subject and that emotion for some time. The Lord has really laid on my heart to talk about it and share with you my perspective about it and why it is such a um, harmful emotion. Because when you feel ashamed about something, you feel far less likely to want to talk about it. You keep it hidden. You end up sometimes doing things that are counterproductive, like getting involved in drugs or alcohol in order to ease the pain, because there's a pain associated with shame. So let me just start off by telling you a really easy way to distinguish the difference between shame and guilt, because I think sometimes those two things get a little bit confused. Um, Guilt says, I did something bad. I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. And therein lies the difference. With guilt, you can kind of talk about it, but it's not deeply personal. It's not in your heart. It's not where you live. Shame says, oh my God, if people find this out about me, oh my God, what will people think? The consequences you think are just devastating. And that's why shame is such a dangerous emotion. It's contagious, it's hidden. We want to keep it hidden. We don't want anybody to know just how bad we are. So, to keep this on a personal level, um, which I think is important, if I'm going to talk about it, I may as well be, 1,000% transparent with you. Um, the first time I felt shame was when my parents divorced. And I was about, I think, 11 or 12 years old, and I felt, whether it was right or wrong, doesn't make any difference, is what I felt. I felt I was bad. If I had been a better child, then they wouldn't have divorced. Um, was that appropriate? No, no, clearly not. I didn't have anything to do with their marriage, per se. But, you feel very self conscious, and I felt that there was something about me that had led to this, you know, um, it, you know, breaking up of the family. So when you are ashamed, you feel like your whole self is flawed, that there is something innately and inherently wrong with you, so, um, but did I talk about it with anybody? No, because you don't want anybody to know just how bad you feel and how deep that pain is. So guilt is about bad behavior. Shame doesn't make that distinction between the action and self. You just, it's all about you. It's a very self-conscious emotion. So, when you feel shame, you feel weighted down. You don't want to leave the house. You don't want people to know. You feel like people will know. They'll be able to look at you and know, what happened. So, um, I, this past weekend, DMX passed away. And for those of you who may not know him, a very prolific writer, very, very talented brother, but was very, very public about all the demons that he had, and he had quite a few. And anytime I heard him speak, I was always struck, and just prayed that there was somebody who could really reach him to touch the depth of those demons. Well, I happened to see a recording today by his sister, who was talking about her relationship with her brother, and apparently it wasn't the best, but she did have some positive things to share. And one of the things that she shared was that when he was DMX, when he was very, very young, his mother took him to a children's home and said that they were just going to visit, but she left him there. And, I can only imagine the stories that a child would make up about that kind of situation. You start making up, well, I must be bad. I must not be a good boy if my mother left me. And she talked about, and she apparently also was in the same kind of situation. Um, and she talked about when you're not able to defend yourself, when you're put in these situations where people are taking advantage of you. And she apparently went through the same thing. So, I just, my heart goes out to that entire family for what they're going through. And I hope it's a cautionary tale for all of us that we can do better by our children. We can do better. This is the future of our country, that we're raising, and we make children so disposable. We don't, from the sex trafficking to, the sexualization of our children at very young, very, very young ages. We got to stop. We really, really, really have to do better for our children. If there's to be any hope for this country at all, and I'm starting to have my doubts because, uh, you know, we seem to have moved past shame. There seems to be no shame about anything in this country. That people can sing songs about the most intimate things, and I don't even mean sex. I mean, you know, crazy stuff. And, it's like, okay, because it's got a good beat. Anyway. All right. So, shame. I'm off my soapbox now. But seriously, about DMX, prayers do go out to that entire family, because it was a lot to overcome. It was a lot. So, what do we do with shame? When we find ourselves in that kind of situation, what happens? Well, from a mental perspective, you revisit, a lot of times it's shaped by our memories of the occasion. And, as we just shared with you about DMX, um, those memories are like on a loop, in your brain. And when you have those memories, you experience the occasion over and over and over again, and um, until you make, let me get, I don't want to get like overly technical here, but you can create new neural pathways in your brain, but your brain seeks out the familiar. Like when you buy a yellow car and you start driving around, all you see are yellow cars because your brain has that neural pathway and is always seeking to make associations with what you already know. And so that's why um, you marry the same person over and over again, because that's familiar. Why do you always seem to attract, this type of person in your life? Because that's familiar. And until you recognize the pattern and make a conscious decision to do something different, then you will continue, with those same neural pathways. Oh, this is familiar. This is comfortable. And that can be, abusive relationships. That can be, the yellow car. That can be anything and everything because your brain is always seeking to make associations with what you already know in order to keep you comfortable, in order to keep you safe. That's how your brain works. But anyway, back to shame. Back to shame. Okay, shame motivates us to save face. So that's why we keep it hidden, because we don't want anybody to know. And so there's an inclination to hide when you get triggered. That familiar, when something triggers you, something that your brain says, oh, this is familiar, this happened before. You want to hide, and the more you hide, the more you seek to relieve the pain by, either compulsive behaviors, or that can be an addiction to porn. It can be an addiction to any substance, really. Um, it can be self-criticism. It can be anything compulsive, which brings about more shame. So, it's clear you have to do something different in order to deal with shame. Well, what can you do? Glad you asked. Glad you asked. There are a couple of things, and I want to talk very briefly about 4 different things that you can do when you realize that shame has been running your life and you want to create something different. That this is no longer working for you. That you're tired of the same, go nowhere relationships. You're tired of, the things that you've been experiencing. And sometimes it means taking a step back from people in your life who create, who shame you. You'll never be anything. You always make the same mistakes. If you're hearing that kind of thing from people, then maybe it means you need to create a new boundary in your life where you make the decision to pick yourself up, and that's not who you are. But you got to get to a point where you can create positive self-talk for yourself. So what can you do? Number one, untangle your feelings. If you feel you're bad, you see yourself as not being able to change or do better. And so untangle what you do or what you did in the past from who you are. And so you can do that, by saying, God created me, and he doesn't create bad, and I'm not a bad person. And, just start talking to yourself about and recognizing your feelings and separate your feelings from who you are. A feeling is a feeling, and sometimes we genuflect and bow down to the feelings and say, that's the sum total of it, because I feel this way, this must be who I am. And that's not true. It's just a feeling. And you can just leave it right there. You don't have to make it mean any more than that. It's just a feeling. And related to that is, sort of what I indicated. Separate what you do from what you are. So, and this is a slightly different spin on it. If you are attached in an unhealthy kind of way, and this requires some self-recognition also, but if you're attached to needing people to validate you, oh, good job. Oh, you're so smart. Oh, you're wonderful. Oh, nobody could have done it like you. Whether it's in church or at home or on the job, if you constantly need that recognition from others, that's a recipe for trouble. And just look at it this way. If people don't applaud what you do, it's okay. If you know you did your best, that's fine. But look at the criticism, and take it with a grain of salt. Take, appreciate. I had a pastor who used to say, eat the meat, throw away the bones. So take what's valid about the criticism when you do get criticized. Take what's valid and apply it and throw the rest of it away. And, it's all good. Third, recognize your triggers. Um, I'll share a short story with you about this. When my son was very, very small, and I went back to work when he was about 6 months old, because I was really going crazy, staying at home. I thought I could be a stay-at-home mom, and I found out within 6 months that I could not, because I was beginning to only talk and baby talk, and it just wasn't working for me. But anyway, I went back to work, and I had a very good babysitter, and my mother called me every single morning. As soon as I got to work, the phone would be ringing, and she'd say, "How you doing? How's the baby?" And okay, and she'd say, "Did you put an undershirt on him this morning?" And if I said yes, "Oh my God, you're going to kill him. It's too hot. The baby's going to die. You don't know what you're doing." And for the rest of the day, I'd feel bad, And also, the flip side of that was if I said no, "Oh my God, it's too cold. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to raise that baby. You may as well just give him to me because you don't know what the heck you're doing. The baby's going to die because you don't know how to dress him. You don't know how to raise him right." And I would be triggered, and I would be upset the rest of the day because I'm thinking I'm a bad mother. I don't know what I'm doing. I should just let my mother, raise it. I mean, I seriously considered that for a while because my mother had it in my head, or I allowed it, that I was a bad mom because I, had put on or not put on an undershirt. So I finally recognized it, after several weeks of this every single day. And I said, "You know what? Don't call me and ask me that anymore. Don't ask me. I'm his mother. I know what I'm doing. Just don't do this. We're not going to have this conversation anymore." And my mother actually kind of laughed, and she dropped it. So, but anyway, I'm sharing that to say, recognize your triggers. I was being triggered by that question and by my mother's response. and thinking, I'm shamed because apparently I don't know how I should be dressing my child. Please. Oh, please. Oh, please. So, recognize your triggers is number 3. Number 4, reach out. Don't, the more you sit and stew in shame, the worse it gets. And this is easier said than done, because I know when I went through a very, very, very shameful and public, episode in my life, I didn't know how to form the words. I didn't know how to reach out for help. But part of it is just getting out of your head long enough. And if you don't have friends or family that you feel you can reach out to, it's really, really, really important to find a therapist, or a doctor or someone else that you can, in our community, and I'm talking about African American community, mental health has not always been looked upon kindly as something that we should be strong and we should just power through and, blah, blah, blah. But that's also caused a lot of dysfunction within this community as well, So my advice, and please, please, please take it, is when you're sitting in shame, and that can be shame because you had an abortion 20 years ago, or it can be shame that, you lost your job and you haven't been able to recover, and you're looking at being homeless in a couple of weeks or a month. It can be shame that, you're not able to feed your family, or your prestige has suffered, because of the pandemic, and you've either lost your job or you've, been cut back. Your hours have been cut back. Whatever it is, don't sit and stew in it in silence and let it grow and take root. Please seek out some help. When you connect with someone that does so many things for you, one of the things that you find, the more you start talking about it, you'll find that, number one, you're not alone, and it also can create a sense of compassion in you, where you can reach out to others who are having the same or very similar experience. And rather than masking the pain with drugs or alcohol, you can get help for yourself, but also you recognize the same situation in other people, and your empathy for what others are going through grows. And when you're connected, you can be there for other people. When you are sitting in shame, you are so self-involved, you can't see, the literal forest for the trees. So I want to recommend a book. Brene Brown has written a book that I've read, and it was very, very helpful to me. It's called Daring Greatly. And she talks about shame and vulnerability and all of that in a really comprehensive kind of way. And so if this is an area that you are struggling with, I highly recommend that book. Now, the 5th thing that I would suggest for you is shining the light, which is closely aligned with reaching out to others. But what you find is the more you talk about it, the less power shame has over you. When you talk about it and you give oxygen to it, the emotion of shame dies. I have a quote from Dr. Thomas Sheff, who is a professor emeritus at University of California, Santa Barbara, who said, shame is the most obstructed and hidden emotion, and therefore the most destructive. Emotions are like breathing. They cause trouble only when obstructed. So, just like if you cut off your windpipe and can't breathe, you're struggling. And he's saying in the same way, that's how shame operates. It obstructs, your emotions, and therefore it's the most destructive because it's hidden. You can hide. you know. So, but the last thing I want to talk to you about in terms of shining the light and really getting help for dealing with shame, and probably going forward, I think I'm going to spend a bit more time talking about shame, and so I'll be sharing more stories, more personal stories of my own in shameful experiences of my life, and how I dealt with it, or didn't. But I've had some doozies, believe me. But this is we're just a week or so past Easter, and as I was thinking about this subject, I was thinking about how we skip over, kind of Good Friday because we want to hurry up and get to Easter, Resurrection Sunday, new clothes, spring is here. We're, anxious to get out, look at the cherry blossoms, and, look at the renewal of the earth and all that. But I would suggest we linger for a moment at the shame of the cross, because you don't get to Easter Sunday without going to the cross. And the cross is where, at that hill at Calvary, is where Jesus took on all of the burden and all of the shame for you and me. And there was no one who ever deserved it less, because he didn't do any of the things that he had been accused of. But he took all of that burden so that you and I could be free, so that you and I could go past the veil in the temple and have direct access to God himself. So if you want to know the depth of God's love, it's not at Easter Sunday. Yes, the resurrected Christ is important, but the shame of the cross is where you find you, where you lay your burdens down, where you can talk to him about the shame that you're feeling, the shame that you're going through, the things that you thought would be different, the disappointments, the shame, the criticism, all the things, the health issues, all the things that you're trying to hide from everybody. You can lay it at the foot of the cross. You can look beyond your everyday blessings and go past, because there's so much more, and there's so much more love that he has for you. We think, woo, 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 I had a $10,000 month. Well, that's lovely. But there's so much more that God has available to you when you get out of your head, get past your shame, and I don't know if you really know this, but when you look at the cross and you see Jesus on the cross and you see that little white cloth, over his private area, that was just the artist's rendition. When Jesus was on the cross, he was naked. His shame was complete. I just want that to settle for a second. He was naked, but he was not ashamed. He was not ashamed, because he did that for you and for me. He was willing to go through that for you and for me, because he saw the prize on the other side. So my question to you is, are you willing to get out of your own head and out of your shame, out of your feelings and out of emotions, to find the greater good that is you, the greater good that is in you, that you've been hiding away from the world? Just a question. Just a question. So, and I'm going to leave you with that question today. I'm going to leave it right there. Um, but we're going to, we're going to be dealing with emotions going forward for a bit, um, because I think that we have a tendency to hide. We don't want anybody to know what we're going through. And this is a safe place. If you want to reach out to me, my contact information is if you're looking on Facebook, my contact information. I'll just give out my telephone number too. If you want to contact me, feel free. 240-477-3872. That's 240-477-3872. And feel free to reach out if you're going through something and just need somebody to talk to. I'd be more than happy to speak with you and share with you what the Lord would have us to share. But in the meantime, I want you to continue to be blessed, continue to be safe. Practice your safe distancing. Do the things do the research, and we'll be okay. We're gonna be okay. But we've got to stop, playing around and acting like this is nothing and it's all just gonna disappear one day by magic. Uh, but until next time, I want you to just be blessed. Stay blessed. Continue walking, forging out that path for yourself and your children. Take care. Take a little extra time with your children today. Let them know how much they loved, even if they get on your nerves sometimes. I understand. I truly understand that. But also see the value and the magnificence that your children and your grandchildren are. But until next time, be blessed. This is Carol Moulton signing off now. Tea Time with Carol. And remember, everything you want is on the other side of fear. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.